Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Resident Alien. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So, obviously, it's actually been a week since the events of last episode. Obviously, interesting outside of the TV show as well as inside the TV show. Obviously, they probably did that time frame on purpose, but still. Harry's been trying to find a way to deal with the fact is his people are coming and they're going to eradicate the entire human race, including Asta. The thing is, there's other people it's like, oh man, because like when well, the thing is, he definitely cares about Max, he just doesn't want to admit it. So it makes you wonder, how does he feel about the rest of the people in Patience? Because I'd say, he somewhat decently cares about Darcy, but it's also by association, because, Darcy is Asta's best friend. So it is interesting, when he's trying to decide, who should I bring along to be a server, a servant or whatever? Because he doesn't want to bring Dan, her dad, because he's like, no, because they're family, and they might actually team up against me and make me their slave, so no, I don't want that. But at no point in his head to go, maybe I should he never thought Liv, he never thought any of the kids, he never thought Mike, he never even thought about Darcy, which I think is kind of funny. But also, maybe because he thinks, now if I bring Darcy, then that's probably going to be, because also Darcy was in his nightmare telling him, yo, it's your fault, you couldn't save Asta, there's nothing you could do. You know, his nightmare, he's never really had any. And as his octopus cousin is telling him, it's right, you are becoming more and more human. I love the whole conversation about, he's like, wait, Colorado? I thought this was India. It's I saw that Indian rug over there. He's like, that's kind of appropriation. That's not a good look for you, bro. He's like, but I bought it. It was for $5. I couldn't help it. He was like, no, listen, this is what actually, that's actually a really good deal. He's almost like, thank you. But still. It's right, you want to save, all these stupid humans, even Asta. So he's basically made a fortified bunker with one of his spears. Because it turns out that's what's going on with Max, all the hair. I'm wondering why is it having that adverse of effect on him. But he uses one of the spears as a means of creating the bunker. So... and he ends up using one later on, so he's only got two. He's got the one Max is using, which is having an adverse effect on him without being actually used, and then there's one still, completely unused, but now he's down half his survival kit, so. But I love that's, the crux of the episode for Harry. It's just him trying to, find someone else to go into the bunker with. He's trying to get things prepared just in case when the time comes. He's trying to prepare things and make things a little bit more comfortable from Asta. Because he's honestly, I want to bring someone to clean up, because honestly, I don't clean up. And by the state of Asta's car, she doesn't either. She's kind of a piglet, as he kind of says. But I also love that it's there's kind of that friendship thing there. The only reason why he wants to keep her alive is because that she's his only friend. I even love Dan being oh, if you were out there with Darcy, probably should have put on two life vests. And she's like, what are you talking about? It's well, Harry only likes you. So if anything ever happens to you, rest of humanity's kind of doomed. And he's like, if Harry can't see the beauty that is Patience, that we're worth saving, then maybe we don't deserve to be saved. And that's something Asta never really thought about. It's yeah, she is the only thing keeping Harry from being man, screw this planet. He only kept this planet alive. The reason why he didn't destroy this planet is because of her. Hell, he was going to go hey, how about you come with me, and then I'll destroy this planet. Hell, even his... the octopus was you should have jettisoned that kid out of the ship. That's what an eject button is for. You could have opened the hatch and he could have flown out in a shooting star over Texas, which Harry was oh, you don't know anything about space. You're just basically an octopus. All you've known is this planet. So, but I like how that all parallels with Darcy and Asta, because it's Darcy feels so bad now that she knows about the Jay situation. Right, I wasn't there when my bestie needed me. But obviously Asta's yeah, but if I ever kept a secret from you, it's only because I love you and I'm trying to protect you. She's what else you keeping from me? She's no, obviously I was referencing the Jay situation. But it's at the time you were doing I think it was related to the Olympics and stuff like that, which we haven't circled back to on that, but obviously that was a bit crux of why Darcy's kind of a little bit of the hot mess that she is. It's just because her career and everything, she when you kind of put your everything into it, she was kind of the hero of Patience, and then that all kind of dwindled away. And I think just a lot of her not being able to be the person that she was, what she dreamed of accomplishing, like all that kind of came crushing down on her. And obviously, like, I think her humor, like, she's actually really, like, it's actually really sad because, like, I think a lot of her humor and a lot of her behavior, like, maybe it is just part of who she is, but it does seem like it is also a bit of a deflection. It is her way of coping with just, like, the sadness, like, the drinking and kind of being, like, the wild, crazy party person that she is. It's just her overcompensating to some extent. I love that bit later on when it's like, hey, I want to play this particular song for my bestie. Let her know if she ever needs me, I'll come running. It's like, the dude's like, wait, I recognize his voice. Darcy, is that you? She's like, no, this is not Darcy. This is Sasha. It's like, Darcy, we dated for 5 months. I know your voice. When our relationship ended, you stole 6 bottles of wine out my refrigerator. She's like, why? Could you play some? He's like, yeah, I guess. Whatever. I'm like, I love that. I'm like, this is why Darcy's the best. I love her so much, dude. I love that character so much. It's so good. We learned a little bit about the mayor. I love that, like, during the poker game, which everyone goes to, he ends up whispering to Harry, he's like, hey, how much is too much choking of someone before, like, they end up dying? I'm like, nobody needs to hear about the kinky shit you and Kate are up to. No, stop it. But it's like, yeah, trying to get his doctors. Like, he tries those moments with Harry, like, oh, like, when can we talk? It's like, never. Leave me alone. I don't want to talk to you, Ben. It's kind of the energy Harry is always admitting. To be fair, he doesn't like anyone in Patience. He's just like, yeah, especially because it's summertime, and this is where, like, a lot of the tourists and stuff like that come to that Patience to hang around, because at least winter and stuff like that, the waters are frozen, but now it's summertime, everyone's coming through, and he's just like, oh, more of the douchebag humans are coming here, and it's just like, I already hate all the humans here, and now you're adding more douchebags. To me, what I thought was, like, the funniest thing was, well, first and foremost, I love that that whole thing at the poker game of, like, oh yeah, this special this special table they're playing cards on. It's like, yeah, this is my grandfather's. And then it was a Johnny being like, oh man, I wish there was a story with. He was like, actually there was. And then Mike is like, are you shitting me? And Darcy's like, John, and he did it because he thought it'd be funny because he knew it'd send Ben off in the story. But it's like, yeah, there was like a big fire, and his grandfather or something, Dickie, ended up saving this one table. I know Darcy's like, but didn't 3 people die in that fire? And John was like, 4. I'm like, he's like, yeah, but that's beside the point. This should be in a museum and stuff like that. I'm like, I love that so much. It's like, yeah, he focused on saving his table, but not the 3. No, 4 other people that died in there. That's kind of messed up. But I guess irony struck back because the tour guide later on being like, oh my God, this is the mayor. He's a Hawthorne. His grandfather, Dickie, died, like in this particular day. But he didn't die along with the other miners. No, he called in sick that day, and he went to the horror house where his wife found him and shot him in the face. And Max is like, oh my God, and I'm related to him. And Ben's like, no, that's just a rumor. That's just a rumor. Legitimately, I belly laughed. I was like, because I didn't expect that. I was like, that's so jacked up. I was like, that's such an... Of course you'd want to bury that truth. It's like, yeah, nobody wants an embarrassing family history thing like that where, like, all these people died. Because, yeah, this is a show where they talked about the miners that died and stuff like that. Because that's such a big part of Patient's history. And to know that your grandfather should have been there with him, but he wasn't. Like I said, it was either grandfather or great-grandfather, whatever the case may be. He was there. He should have been there with them, but he was too busy getting laid at the whorehouse. Wife found out and popped him because of it. So it's like, man. Of course, like, man, that Hawthorne family line is kind of a little jacked up, isn't it? I love it. But speaking of the card game, I love it. It was so good. Harry thinking he knows it so well. He's like, yeah, I watched like 15 minutes of YouTube videos on how to do it. I love that it's Harry there. It's Harry, John, another dude, Mike, Ben, Darcy, and Ellen. And she's talking about the fact, she dropped some interesting info that basically... It's like, yeah, I'm surprised you have any money, considering. It's like, wait, what? Oh, yeah, like, he ran out of money like 6 years ago. You're like, wait, what? It's like, apparently, the real Harry tried to sell his cabin to her uncle, but he backed out of the deal. And so Mike and Liv start looking into it later on, and they find out that basically he put his his cabin up on the market for like a week, and then like a week later he ended up paying like, what was it, like $500,000 to get it back or something like that. It's like, how'd you just like stumble across that money? How'd you come from nothing to something? And then Liv is like, oh, maybe he's a contract killer. I was like, is that what that was? Like, because we still never found out why he actually killed Sam. I mean, not less Sam's wife hired him to do it, because she did seem mega suspicious, but once again, she was like the red herring. She seemed too obvious. But now it's like, no, Harry's the one who did it. But the question is, why? Was he hired to do it? Was there other motivations? Like, maybe he did start off, which is kind of interesting. And I guess his ex kind of lucked out, because she wasn't going to be, well, granted, they were split. But maybe, like, that's what eventually led to their relationship falling apart, is because he became a contract killer and he wasn't the same person he used to be. I mean, I guess, once again, karma has a way of getting back at him for being a killer. I mean, who knows how many people actually killed. We know of one. We know Sam, but we don't know beyond that. I love that the card game, especially because Ellen won, and I love that Harry was like, no, I was the one that's supposed to win, and he broke the table in the process. I was like, that's a family heirloom and everything. I love it. I also thought this was kind of a cute thing, just a cute little line. It's like when Liv and Mike were watching Harry at the diner, that it's like, oh, there's Max Hawthorne and his girlfriend. I'm like, oh, that's cute that you think that. They wouldn't think that, because I think Max isn't at the age to really notice girls yet. Will just notice being attracted to anyone. I don't think he's at that age yet. Maybe not. But because he's definitely at that age where it's like, oh, like, that's your stereotypical thing of like, ew, girls are gross. Like, he's at that point. But also, like, Sahara's just like his friend. But I was like, oh, but I thought that was like, oh, that's cute that you think that's his girlfriend. Maybe she didn't mean anything by it. Maybe, like, she didn't mean, like, Liv didn't mean in, like, a romantic sense. Maybe she just meant, like, oh, his girlfriend, but who knows? I think she meant it, like, oh, like, they hang around each other so much. But, like, yeah, Sahara's, like, the only one who knows the truth. But I love when they came to visit Harry. And I love that Liv, she's, like, only took, like, the first 3 classes of lip reading. And the rest was, like, stuff. She's like, yeah, I just got pretty good at it because my grandma talks a lot of shit about me. I'm like, every time you talk about yourself, Liv, because I feel you, Liv, because Liv is like, she has no confidence, which makes Mike the worst partner for her to have, or rather boss to have, but she's so self-deprecating because so many people, like, defecate on her, shit on her, and that's such a bum. But it's like, oh, he's like, you space pirate or something. It's like, no, that's probably exactly what Harry. It's like, oh, what kind of toilet does Aussie use? And Mike's like, what do you? She's like, no, that can't be it. It's like, no, it's exactly it based on the context of some of those conversations. But I love that Max still doesn't realize, like, because it isn't just his chest, he's got a full-grown beard, and she helped him shave it. I love, like, the little blood spots where you could see, like, the shaving kind of, like, cut him. Well, she cut him when she was shaving him. But he doesn't realize, like, I don't know why that didn't cross his mind, just because I guess he's just a dumb kid, where he didn't realize, like, oh, yeah, I did take this thing from Harry, so that probably does... Well, because I was about to say no, because those orbs didn't pop up until after he destroyed the ship. Because I was like, not unless it ended up in Max's pocket. When he passed up, I was like, that's impossible. Like, the spirits didn't pop up, and so he had to have, like, taken them from Harry's space. It's like, it's like, no, you're supposed to be good. You're talking about how much he loves you and everything. But I guess, like, the moment his back was turned, the moment he went into his room and everything, you decided, like, to give a middle finger to Harry despite everything and put it in your pocket. And now he doesn't realize, like, oh, cool, that's probably the one thing that's probably affecting me while I'm, like, suddenly wolfmanning it out right now. But I love that he's like, cool, I'll help you guys out. Fine, but Sahara has to stand up and say that she just farted. She's like, I'm not going to do that. And Max is like, I'll do it. He's like, no, you want to do it. So it has to be her. And I guess she refused to do it, so. And all of a sudden you hear in the background, Max be like, I farted. And Liv's like, he said, and Max like, I know, I heard. I love that also, like, Mike is like, wait, he's dipping pie into chowder? You get into, like, the guy's obviously a serial killer. It's like you get able to get into the mind of a serial killer by finding out what meal they're eating. So, it turns out Harry's meal is pie with oatmeal, plain oatmeal with extra milk. I even love Mike being like, if there's a fly in it, give me a fly too. Except put the fly on the side because I don't eat flies because they crawl all over shit. I also love the whole, like, when they're going to that stakeout to talk to the lady home seller who had a connection to Harry because she's the one that put his house, his cabin on the market for that little bit of time. So it's like, right. I love that Mike gives himself, of course, this like exorbitant backstory. And then it's like, okay, cool. And Liv's like, what about me? And he was like, okay, so this is the most important role. You are the mother of our 3 children, Alvin, Simon, and Theodore. And he's like, actually, you're pretty tired, so let's make it about 5 kids. And then, but, like, Liv shits on him by immediately being like, oh, yeah, like, I'm this. Like, his backstory, she immediately takes it. And it's like, yeah, this is my stay-at-home husband who takes care of our 5 children, so that's why he looks so tired. And he's like, Mr. Mom. And he's just like, yeah, he's like, yeah, but I'm also this and that, like, trying to keep some aspects of his backstory because Liv snatched it from him. I'm like, yeah, I love the little victories that Liv takes for herself. But I love when they're in the car and they're trying to crank it up and it's not working. He's like, because he references like, yeah, like I've got like, he's like, at most I've got like what, 90K saved away. Because they always talk about that, like there are a lot of people who do not have a lot of savings. Like at least most Americans, that's a statistic. Not a lot of Americans have like a lot, because most Americans kind of live check to check. A lot of times, in the sense of like they might have some money stashed away, but it's never like a large sum. Like he has like 90K. Even Liv's like, that is a substantial amount of money because most people probably would. I mean, I don't know. I just feel like statistically, probably most people wouldn't have that much money stashed away for a rainy day. Because like I think a lot of people do live mainly like check to check type of thing, like with just expenses and stuff like that, just living in general, living expenses and bills and stuff. But I love that Liv is like, yeah, I just don't have the money, the $65 to pay for this. And then Mike's like, oh, I was probably just rounding up. It's probably more like 85, 87K. It's like, that doesn't make it any better, Mike. He's like, oh, I'll get out and start pushing. So I love that. I kind of referenced it a little bit with Ben, with the tour guide and everything, but I love that Mayor Jessup is like basically like, oh, check out our town. All this stuff is amazing. Don't go to Patience. It's like, oh, like he made reference to the missing foot. And he's like, yeah, if you're out of Patience, come on to our town. And then Ben's just like, cool. I'll go ahead and just put the cyanide in my coffee right now. But the tour guide and everything, I even love the whole thing of the welcome to Patience sign has a foot on it. Because even, and I wonder, is this something Ben will eventually do or not? Is lean into it. Like, yeah, like, there's murders and there's pretty jacked up stuff in Patience's, like, current history, but previous history because the whole thing with Dickie and everything. But, I wonder will he eventually get the idea to lean into it and make Patience kind of a tourist trap, but he wants to make it seem like the safest place out there when there's so much shady stuff going on. I even love Darcy constantly poking fun at him about like, oh no, you're still weird around me because we kissed. It's like, all right, like I'll pretend to be you, you pretend to be me, and like, oh, I'll grab on your butt when making it. He's like, no. She's like, go ahead. Oh, go ahead, touch my butt. He's like, no, I didn't touch her. But I thought that was kind of like interesting and how awkward. Even at the card game, she's throwing that out there of like, oh yeah, he's just nervous because we kissed. She's like, yeah, because back when we dated, she's like, no, recently, and just like, Darcy's so mean. I love it. Some more stuff about Asta in this episode. Obviously, she's trying to reach out to Jay, try to have that relationship, but her mom is like, okay, you can't just like cross the street to Jay. Like, I love that she's being civil about it. She's like, I'm not trying to, like, I would never make it so that you could never be in Jay's life. I just wish that you had given me the opportunity, as her mother, like, to set that up. Because like Asta kind of crossed the boundaries by telling her the truth and everything. And so Asta's like, I'm sorry, she just was looking for like a job and stuff like that, and I just, it was there, like I just jumped at the opportunity. I apologize, but she's like, right, you don't cross the street to Jay, let Jay cross the street to you. And Asta's like, okay, like once again, she's not being a complete and utter D-bag, because it could have been that, but like her being like, okay, like trying to like, and because like Asta's also trying not to screw her over, because it's like, right, you took her and you raised her to be the great kid that she is, so like I'm not going to I'm not, like, who am I to kind of jeopardize that? Like, right, you are her mother. You've been there for her when I couldn't be. So I'll respect your boundaries and wait for Jay to come to me rather than me coming to Jay. So I thought that was kind of neat. But I also appreciate this episode is Asta trying to convince Harry to care about other people because of what Dan said. So it's like, right, that's why she actually convinced him to go to the card game with Liv and Mike, and he only went because Asta said he kind of had to. But she stops by the house and finds the his little section he's put together, and she's like, no, I'm not gonna live here a year with just you. And he was like, rude, especially because he went through the trouble painting her. He's like painting her an outside view. He's like, yeah, feel the breeze. He's like, yeah, these are the dead bodies. This one right here is the boy. Max is like, yeah, you can't see his frowning face because my brush was too thick. But she's like, no, I'm not going to live a year here with you and stuff like that, especially with the octopus. And he was like, yeah, I don't want to spend a year with you watching you shit in a bucket for a year. And she's like, no, like, if you care, like, call them up to tell your people to back off. And he was like, I can't. And he's like, she's bluffing. I'm bluffing too. And she immediately called him out. He's like, I'm bad at bluffing. So it leads to a whole thing of us. It's like, all right, you care about me, obviously. Well, how about I go in here, take this toaster, and get in the tub? And I thought it was really sweet. He got scared and freaked out. He's like, no, don't do this. This isn't fun. This isn't a game. This isn't fun anymore. And she about to drop it in there, and he unplugs it, luckily. And she's like, see, you do care about me. He's like, fine, I will call someone. And he's like, all right, be careful getting out the tub so you don't slip and fall, which is like, that's super sweet. But it turns out Asta played him. Like, oh, she was taking a gamble because it wasn't a gamble. She turned the power switch on. Like, Harry didn't realize that she had disabled the power to the outlet. So I was like, oh, pretty smart. I was like, are you really about to take that risk? She's like, yeah, I'm glad to know you care about me. Sadly, it just took you too long to, like, come to that realization. But she had it all planned out. She was willing to take that gamble because that gamble is ensuring the rest of humanity's survival. Because it's like, right, what about my family, my dad, Darcy? Like, you know, I can't just live with you. So she's like, fine, I'd rather be on top of the alien weapon and it destroy me into a million pieces than just be alone with you, which once again just hurts him a little bit more and more each time she says it. And then we had the whole situation where, because Liv and Mike put everything together, it's like, yo, they gathered all the evidence they needed, and they even found out Harry got fired from his previous place of employment because they caught him stealing, like, botulinum or something like that. And you're like, oh, okay, so how's this all going to play out? And they roll up on his place, and we know Asta's there, and it's like, they're like, oh, don't try to hide him from us. We know that he was here, because I thought they weren't actually going to be there. I thought, like, Asta and him had already left, but, like, I knew they were eating, like, he was going to go eat pizza, but I thought, like, maybe they left, and it's like, oh, they were going to search his place while he was gone or something. But it's like, no. Asta opens the door, and she's like, no, what's this all about? It's like, yeah, he might not be what you think he is. And I was like, oh, man, Asta's probably thinking, like, oh, you guys know about him being an alien? Wait, what? And then they find the floorboard, which got weakened, because they made a point to show that particular floorboard, and I thought that was just kind of like, oh, just a byproduct of, like, I didn't think much of it. And it's like, no, like, it was already a loose floorboard, just showing you what they showed you at near the beginning of earlier in the episode about that. Mike happens to stumble across it, and that's the stuff that he used to kill Sam. And it's like, where's Harry? He's like, all right, he's in the cellar or something like that. And the moment they go down there, who they run into? Asta was like, what? Oh, that was so good. So he used one of the spears to disguise himself as Asta last second, and it disintegrates into water, like it's brought up earlier. Like, so he has 2 of those left. So is he going to lock all 3 of them down there? Because now he knows, like, cool, I chose the body of a murderer. Now that's going to complicate things even more, because I'm supposed to be trying to contact my people to try and get them not to kill everyone on this planet. We'll see how that goes along with your people. But now it's like, cool, you got this to deal with. Now they've also saw, wait, you were down here, Asta? Then who was that we saw? Wait, what? So how do you explain that? Oh, dude, I'm so excited to see where the next episode takes us with this, because maybe then Asta's going to hear, like, wait, Harry killed Sam? And then she's going to realize, like, the real Harry killed Sam, so it's actually kind of a good thing that this Harry ended up killing the other Harry. So it's kind of like, cool, but it complicates things considering this Harry isn't human. So this might be where everyone ends up, like, at least a lot of the main cast might end up finding out the truth about him eventually, like Darcy, Ben, Kate, Mike, Liv, Darcy, like, they might all find out this season. Maybe not. Might be because I've avoided all previews. I did not see the trailer. So some of these things I'm saying might already be like, oh, it's confirmed because it's in the trailer. I don't want to know. I really don't want to know. So because I'm avoiding all the previews and trailers, but still, I'm so excited to see where all this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.